Good morning, Dan. And in for Amy this morning, Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass and John Paul Ryan took to the dais along with a number of Republicans, Kevin Brady, chairman of the House Ways and Means, Peter Roskam, congressman from the suburbs, who is also a member of the Ways and Means, spoke yesterday. Here's what Paul Ryan had to say in outlining the House GOP tax reform plan.
This plan is for the middle-class families in this country who deserve a break. It is for the families who are out there living paycheck to paycheck, who just keep getting squeezed. You know, about half the country today is living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot more people are about a paycheck away from living paycheck to paycheck in this country, and this is going to help give people relief. The Tax Cut and Jobs Act will deliver real relief for people in the middle, people who are also striving to get there. With this plan, the typical family of four will save $1,182 a year on their taxes. For many families, having an additional $1,182 more will make a real difference. That $1,182 more covers about a year's worth of gas for your car. It covers your family's phone bill for the year, depending on how much data, of course, your kids use.
Yeah, he needs to shelf the Henny Youngman routine, but otherwise,
take my tax plan, please.
Yeah, he's got $1,182 for household income of $60,000, basically. In addition to that, you've got 7 brackets down to 4, 12, 25, 35, and the top rate stays the same, 39.6. Corporate rates from 35 to 20. Pass-through income for those S corps from 39.6 to 25. On the on the just kind of everyman earner side, standard deduction increases from $6,350 to $12,000 for individuals, $12,700 to $24,000 for married couples. Expansion of the child tax credit by 60% from $1,000 to $1,600. And then this is an important one for Illinois, the highest property tax in the nation. Federal deductions for state and local income tax and sales tax eliminated. Local property tax is deductible up to $10,000. So unfortunately for that household income of $60,000, that middle income earner who's going to get the $1,182 from the feds back, a 2% bump, that 2% bump is going to be more than eaten up by living in the high tax state of Illinois.
Can't wait for Dick Durbin, the bullhead himself, to stand up and defend the taxpayers of Illinois by voting no on this one. He'll make me sick.
For more on this topic, we're both on the wage earner side as well as on the business entrepreneur side and ultimately revenue from both sides. We're pleased to be joined by Congressman Peter Roskam, Republican from Illinois 6. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and John, good to be with you guys this morning. Thanks for having me on.
So one of the things that, for example, Cranes was reporting is yesterday is that you're supportive of the plan. But boy, oh boy, in DuPage County, there are, by my count, from defendhomeowners.com data, which is my website, 58,000 plus households in DuPage County who pay greater than $10,000 in property taxes. So the combination of the income tax increase from July plus property taxes capped at $10,000 in terms of deductibility, not much good news here for Illinois, is there?
That's only half the story, and I went around and around with Cranes on this. That it's impossible to break through the logic. If that were the whole story, then people would be getting whipsawed. But that's not the whole story.
Okay.
So separate out the Springfield mess, which is a Springfield mess, and the irony now of Democrats claiming crocodile tears for middle-class taxpayers
Yes.
after
Well,
they stuck it to them over the summer.
Yes.
It's just incredible.
Yes.
Set that aside and go right to this tax plan. It offers tax relief to the exact families that we're talking about. So the lowering the rate, the increasing the child tax credit to $1,600 per family, the elimination of the alternative minimum tax, which gets tens of thousands of people in my constituency, are all gone. So when you net this out, it's a tax break. It's tax relief. And I think most people say, look, I don't really care about the equation by which I get tax relief. I just want tax relief. And so what we're able to do is to drive these rates down for everybody by putting some things on the table and negotiating our way through it. I felt strongly that the property tax deduction had to stay on this form because I represent a constituency, and you guys know this, that is scandalized by the property tax. So we said, okay, look, well above the average is, $10,000 in property taxes, and that deductibility gets a whole lot of people. And the people that doesn't get, they're still going to get relief through the rates. They're still going to get relief through the elimination of the alternative minimum tax. They're still going to get relief in not just the child tax credit, many of them, but there's a new family credit and so forth. So this nets out. It's a winner. If one falls into the temptation of looking at a narrow niche, it's like looking at one ingredient in a menu. It's ridiculous. You can't evaluate anything that way.
Well, Congressman, I've noticed that it looks like Jeff Bezos kind of likes his tax cut because I'm looking at his newspaper, the Bezos Post, that everyone reads in Washington, and they come out with their facts checker where they're actually slapping the Democrats for, quote, falsely claiming GOP tax plan will raise taxes for most working-class families. But out in Washington, do you have to raise this, waive this fact checker at Democrats who keep saying that?
So the Washington Post does a fact check and gives 4 Pinocchios, which means a big fat lie, to some Democrats that were tweeting out yesterday. This is a big tax. I don't remember the exact language, but
one is
on the middle class.
One is their next presidential nominee, Senator Kamala Harris of California. On average, middle class families earning less than $86,000 would see a tax increase under the Republican tax reform plan. They keep saying this stuff.
No, it's unbelievable, and just with impunity. So here's the good news. That's not true. And so the more people that look at this plan, they're going to say, well, this is good stuff. And so we've got a lot of feedback now. It's been out there. Here's the language. This is not one of these Obamacare things where you got to read it or it's got to be passed so you know what's in it. And the language is out there. People can evaluate it, opine, tear it apart, comment, critique. And then we're going to be taking up as a committee level next week amendments, grind all through it and so forth. And then hopefully this will be discussed openly and will be presented on the House floor before Thanksgiving. And the thinking is let's get tax relief done in 2017. And I think if we do, 2018 is going to be a really good year from an economic point of view. The growth that you'll see, I think, will be just phenomenal.
Some criticism from that perspective on the growth side of it is that, Republicans, they have to compromise. They have to work through the Beltway process. You've got a small margin of error in the Senate. Understand that. But too much give in to the class envy political rhetoric of the left by not doing anything with the top rate of 39.6. And so you're not going to, frankly, not doing much for people that pay the overwhelming majority of taxes in this country. And so you're not going to see the robust business investment and job growth that proponents of the plan are ultimately predicting.
I understand the nature of that criticism. I'd say 2 things. Number one, it's Donald Trump who insisted on keeping the top rate at 39.6. So, the idea that this is some capitulation is Trump's policy insofar as not wanting to be characterized as benefiting himself and so forth. So he made the decision about keeping that rate at 39.6. But even at that, those people, they all get a benefit as the tax brackets are reduced and the rates on those brackets are reduced all the way up. So there's tax relief there. There's also business tax relief, but you pointed out, Dan, earlier on when we were talking, that 25% rate for pass-throughs is enormous. And then there's 2 other things that are important. One is we've cooked in permanency into this, that is permanent tax rates at the corporate level, which is going to be incredibly important, and permanently low at the 20% rate, and also a permanent rate that individuals can rely on. So this is, you're right, it's part of this completely ridiculous process by which you've got to load these things in the House to make sure that they can't be blocked by Senator Schumer in the Senate. But that said, I think when it all nets out, I think people are going to say, This is good stuff. And I'm out of the perfect business. You get nothing if you're chasing perfect.
What about
I'm into the let's get some. Yeah, except for John Taft.
What about McCain, Susan Collins, Murkowski? What about what do you think they're going to do?
Okay, so here's what you got to think strategically: making them offer they can't refuse. This is going to be so good and so compelling. Same thing is true from a lot of the Democrat senators that have run in states that Donald Trump won. So does Joe Donnelly in Indiana really come in and say, "Oh, I'm going to buy into the hyperbole when he doesn't give tax relief to folks in Fort Wayne, Indiana"? Good luck making that argument. Heidi Heidkamp from North Dakota. A lot of these other people are going to be looking at this saying, I know the tweets and I know the nonsense, but if the Washington Post is calling this out and they're characterizing it as middle-class tax relief, good luck trying to explain that when they're up for re-election.
Yeah, there's a really interesting. I mean, the Democrats are really having to do significant contortions here. Kevin Drum, writing in Mother Jones, he charts how Republicans, his perspective, how Republicans are using the tax code to screw Democrat voters. He goes state by state the percentage of mortgages that are north of $500,000, since that's the new cap on mortgage interest deduction, and he notes that all the states where you have over the U.S. average of 5% of 5,000 plus mortgages are blue states. So on the one hand, they're saying this is a tax cut for the rich, and it's not helping the middle income. On the other hand, they're trying to protect all the rich people in blue states that have 6- and 7-figure mortgages who have higher wages and more advanced degrees. So they're a little bit betwixt and between with the argument they're trying to make against it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they're really whipsawed on this thing, and which means they're not particularly logical on this. Here's what's going to be interesting to watch. Tune in. We're going to have 4 days next week, and it'll, the Ways and Means Committee is going to grind through this, and you will hear every hyperbolic argument. You will hear every oversimplification, every mischaracterization, and we're going to absorb it. We're going to counter the arguments. We're going to come back. And if it's honest critique, if it's, if there's some suggestions that, that are legitimate, then we'll make adjustments and try and find common ground. But the hyperbole will be unbelievable. And this is also basically the end of the opening ceremonies for the Lobbyist Olympics, because everybody's coming over the hilltop now.
And the realtors will be leading the charge, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's basically an all skate right now. All skate.
He is Peter Roskam, a Republican congressman from the 6th District out in the Western Burbs, also a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, the architect of this House GOP tax reform proposal. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
Connect with